This fish is disappearing from Australia and almost nobody knows that it exists. And if we built this tank the wrong way, it might just disappear. Now, we've built a lot of aquariums. This one, however, has a purpose. If done right, we can help repopulate a dying species. Most people think that endangered species out in the oceans or in the rainforests. But this particular species right here used to thrive in small Australian rivers and billabongs. If we want this really, really pretty little species to act naturally, to breed, which is very important, to claim territory, and to feel strong and comfortable enough to repopulate, we have to do this right. A normal, pretty tank just won't cut it. So this build isn't about aesthetics. Like most of the tanks in our fish room, we love our hardscape and our aesthetics. We're trying to replicate a habitat. Using the hardscape materials that we've chosen, we're trying to create all these little cave entries and sunken logs, high tannin content in the water that replicates exactly where they come from, which is the slow moving billabongs. We are engineering this ecosystem to mirror exactly that. A very slow moving, high tannin-y environment with a sand bed, lots of overhanging, sheltering positions. We also need to add plants that are native to Australia as well to make them feel comfortable. They're egg-laying species, which means they're going to be laying all of their eggs under hollows, in caves, and then protecting them all the way up until they're small little species. Lots of aquascapers get quite eclectic about the way they build their tanks. They use lots of mixes of gravels and sands and different types of rocks, pieces of driftwood that maybe have different styles as well to create their underwater world. Now, obviously we need to be able to see through the tank too, and we need to be able to clean it and keep things moving because we aren't giving them an entire river or a stream to breed in. We're giving them a small glass box. So we've got to play with the functionality of this tank, the beauty of capturing the Australian landscape and riverscapes, and the habitat for these beautiful little fish. They're also in environments that have lots of broken sightlines. So picture lots of sunken things, leaves in water, fallen trees, lots of plants that may come up. They also have lots of mixed substrate, or like sometimes they'll live in muddy environments that have got more mud as the top layer, or sand and rocks. It's quite varied. So what we've tried to do in this tank is we chose one style of scape that we can manage. Mud does not seem to be one that we can manage. So we decided to go with a rocky, sandy billabong area. They also don't have large fluctuations. They have small micro fluctuations in their environments, which means we do need to keep this tank relatively stable until it comes time to breed. Now, this extra nuance, this extra attention to detail is the bit that we're putting in. And it's also why most people, when they keep their fish and they don't have the habitat and breeding habits in mind, they'll go, you know, my fish looks fine and healthy, but they're not breeding and I don't know why. A lot of the time, it's this extra 10% of effort that can deliver the overall 90% of the breeding results when it comes to repopulating species or even just breeding species of any kind in your aquariums at home. We chose the Weo Florabed as our base substrate because we want to make sure we plant up the back of the tanks. And then we got two Weo river kits called Silver Shine. Now the reason we chose Silver Shine is because they've got stones in it similar to Sirius stone, but they don't release as much KH. They do, however, still release some. That puts the onus back on me to be water changing this tank regularly. These are soft water fish, so regular water changes will help a hell of a lot when it comes to keeping them comfortable. So I'm water changing this tank once every second day, at least while the rocks are, you know, still forming and still leaching out their KH at a higher rate. It's still very, very manageable, and you can use these rocks in soft water tanks, even though they do have that water chemistry boosting additives. You just need to offset it with something as simple as water changing. The one thing that does happen when we do that is we end up losing tannins in the water because of that. And the way we offset that is simple. we just, almost every water change, will add 1 or 2 extra botanicals to leach more tannins into the water. The best source of botanicals that I've found so far is by a small little company called Blackwater Aquariums, which are Australian. And the reason I like it so much is because they have a massive variety of botanicals to choose from. So we're spoiled for choice. The other thing that adding these botanicals more regularly does is it simulates a scenario where there's lots of broken sightlines. So we don't just like strategically place these leaves, we just float them, let them circulate and then sink by themselves. That both gives the natural environment of what a leaf normally does in a billabong or in a waterway, as well as where it sinks, it will provide a little bit of cover for these fish. And I've noticed over time, the more botanicals that end up sinking, the more active these fish are becoming, the more they're coming out, the more they're being more daring with their food habits. The moment you start seeing your fish exploring due to the changes you're making is the moment you know you're starting to nail it as a fish keeper. Now these are billabong fish, meaning that they don't really deal with like a static light that's just blasting over the tank all day. They've got choices. They can be out hunting in the light where they can see their prey a lot easier, or they can go back and hide from predators in a darker area. That's why we chose the Illumagic Pixels. What they do is because the spread of light is so good, you often get that sort of shimmering or shaking effect, which naturally happens in waterways that they exist in. And that shimmering or shaking effect creates like a dappled light at the bottom of the aquarium, which allows these fish to feel more at home. And we're matching with our scheduler, we're matching the photo period that they're currently experiencing outside in the Australian waterways, just in a way better environment with no predators. When your light moves naturally, your fish move naturally. Even though I hate not being able to physically see my fish all points in the day, they don't hate it, they love it. And after these fish got settled in, we started seeing confident action, not stressed out action. The southern purple-spotted gudgeon, it didn't disappear overnight. It's been fading out slowly due to habitat loss, really poor water quality, and environments that just no longer make sense for it. But the biggest reason of all is something that Australians are very well acquainted with, particularly people that love freshwater fishing. It's carp. Carp are very closely related to koi. However, koi can be sold for thousands and thousands of dollars. Carp are just the rodents of the rivers. They go around devouring small species, and because they're filter feeders, they actually stir up all of the mud at the bottom of Australian rivers and waterways, and that increases the amount of particles in the water, the turbidity of the water. That directly impacts sensitive native Australian species and basically drives them into extinction. They also have large mouths, which are big enough to swallow whole and at least bully all of the other fish in the waterways. Now, what you're seeing behind me is obviously after our build. We're still at the point where we're deciding on what plants to add to this tank. They tend to like bigger, bushier plants that go from the soil and reach all the way up because it gives them so much cover and shade. So if you've got any plant suggestions for me for this tank that don't grow in like super high-tech CO2 injected tanks, this is very low tech. We're not adding any nitrogen to it through fertilizers or anything. Let me know in the comment section below anything good that would work well on this tank, as well as if you've ever kept fish like this, you'll know that they like plants that are in the water and then grow out of the water as well. So suggestions for plants that I can use like that, bonus points if they're Australian natives and are already in our waterways, would help me so much. So please, let me know in the comment section. At this point, the tank looks finished, but the real test hasn't even happened yet. We've got to go out, get our purple-spotted gudgeons, bring them back and see how they like their new home. The moment we added the gudgeons to the tank, we thought we had made a serious mistake because they were so scared, they were extremely timid fish, and we thought they weren't embracing this habitat as their new home. However, after about 2 or 3 weeks of them being in this tank, that's when that natural behavior started to show. They started to show more confidence, more acceptance of this being their home. And as the algae started to grow, they started to grow more confident too. If more people in the hobby built tanks like this, with projects as grandiose as trying to rehabilitate endangered species, we as hobbyists could be helping our environment just by building a tank that's not for us, it's for the fish. So let me know in the comments section if you're the kind of person that would love to keep a tank just for keeping a tank, which is awesome by itself, or if you'd like to start taking on more important projects that sort of support endangered species in your area. Drop your thoughts below. I read every single comment. And if you want to see if these gudgeons successfully breed in this tank, you're gonna have to hit the subscribe button and wait and see. Turns out, rehabilitating an endangered species as a project is a lot funner than I thought so far. Catch you guys on the next video.